Guys, you are back here at my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be talking about something that I get asked so often. That's what I do here. I usually use this as a platform to answer the questions that you all have for me in a way that can help shed some light on what really happens behind the camera, what really happens behind that highlight reel that we call Instagram, and shed some light on reality. Today we're going to be talking about why I believe that finding balance is a lie and how I juggle it all. Okay, so first I want to start by saying I've heard people over and over say that living a balanced life or having a balanced life is a lie. And while I understand what they're getting at, and I think their whole concept is that having a balanced life is a lie, but balancing life is a truth, I can see what they're saying. But I believe everybody, this is my thoughts. You know what? I'm contradicting the books and the pros, and I'm saying how I believe. I believe that having a balanced life is a very possible thing for every single person in this world. And I believe that everybody's definition of balance is completely different. And I think until we recognize that and we acknowledge that, what works for me might not necessarily, probably won't work for you. What works for Nick behind the camera is not a balanced life for me. What works for Alexa, who's also behind the camera, is not a balanced life for me. Chris and I together, part of why we didn't work out in a relationship is because our ideas of what balance was and what we were both striving for in a balanced life was not, let's talk biblical, equally yoked. We were not on the same page. We were not equally yoked. And so there was no wrong or right to either. His truth is such a beautiful one. And what he lived and felt pressure that he was not, creating balance in his life actually was balance for him. And it was wonderful for him. And when he was actually able to live into it, he's able to find peace, and vice versa. And me and my life and what I have created as balance has been a beautiful truth for me. I just said a magic word, and that is, the word started with a C, and it is create. What Chris created, what I have been able to create. Finding balance is a complete lie. Living balance is not a lie. Finding it, I do believe, is a lie, because I don't believe balance is ever a thing you will find. I believe balance is a thing you must create. You must know that just like you will never find happiness, you must create it. Just like you will never find peace. Peace isn't over there on the other side of this. Joy isn't over there on the other side of that. All of it is something that you must create. It already exists within, but you have to pull it out of yourself to create. Same goes with living a balanced life. You must define what balance looks like for you. I had to define what balance looks like for me. And in one era of my life, balance for me was a lot more work heavy. It was a lot more career heavy. It was a lot more mission driven than it is now. Where now balance for me, to create balance with my family, with my kids, with my goals in my life, and what I want my life to look like in 20 years, what my why is now. My balance in life is much heavier in the family realm. It's much heavier with what I do for my kids. I have decided that those priorities cannot budge anymore. In creating balance, I have two analogies that I absolutely love. If you were raised in any kind of a church, your primary or Sunday school teacher probably did this for you. What they would say is the big rocks in your life. You need to define what the big rocks in your life are. What are they? For me, my big rocks are my family. Right here, my kids, that's obviously family. The people that mean a lot to me. Maybe it's my friends that, love me unconditionally. My church, my service to my community, my mission, and how I help other people change their lives. So I get to define what my big rocks are in life, right? These things, my taking care of myself, moving for 5 minutes a day, whatever it is, having some me time, reading a book. These things are big rocks in my life. They are big rocks. I know they are vitally important to my overall health and sense of well-being. And if I do not get these things in, I am not a happy person. I'm not a happy person. I'm not a good mom. I can't be a good wife. Not a wife right now, but you get the gist. Then we have to understand and acknowledge and realize what the sand is in our lives. And these are the things that are not as much of a priority. They're not. They are, maybe it's going to a movie, which sometimes you can make a priority as a part of play if you've ever read the book Essentialism, which is amazing, not to digress too much, but maybe it is going to the movies. Maybe it's wasting time playing Xbox. Maybe it's doing things for other people before you're doing things for yourself. Maybe it's the ability, like you saying yes to everything, right? Because we struggle as human beings to say no to anyone because we feel like if we say no to somebody else, we're essentially letting them know that our value is not there. So all of these things that are smaller priorities that we tend to let get in the way of the bigger priorities can consume us. So if we take these smaller priorities, if we take the sand, if we take, saying yes to somebody that needs us to pick them up for the airport, or we say yes to, doing someone's homework at school or whatever it is, if we start saying yes to all of the things that we should be saying no to, we are going to have a hard time fitting all of our very important rocks. And when you are starting to pour in all of the big rocks, they do not fit. You are left with the big rocks. You are left with you taking care of yourself. You are left with you spending time reading a book to your child that you didn't have time for because you were so busy saying yes to everybody else. You couldn't fit in the time that your spouse needs with you, the one-on-one time that you guys need to build a strong relationship. You couldn't fit in serving other people, something that is vitally important. We find ourselves by losing ourselves in the service of others, and we couldn't fit it in because there were other things down here that we said yes to first. Now, if we reverse this, take all the rocks out. So we're gonna do this again. And one thing I wanna clarify, because as I was talking, something came to mind. I do not want to confuse the idea that I said serving other people with, in that it's a good thing and it's a big rock, with the idea of sometimes it being the sand, because it can be the sand. And to clarify, we need to be aware that there is a different, it is okay to serve other people, but we cannot serve other people out of obligation over and over while neglecting our own personal needs. Very, very important. Most people watching this, you like me, are yes people. You worry that if you say no to something, then you are essentially saying no to your value. When the truth is, when you know your value and you know that you are filling yourself first, if you fill your cup first, then you are so much easier able to fill other people's. And we're gonna show this right now. First, moving your body, taking care of yourself. Giving yourself alone time that you so desperately need that you cannot do because you're running yourself ragged for other people. Spending one-on-one time with your spouse that they have been begging you for a better relationship. Being a present parent, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally too. Serving inside of your church community, but not at the expense of your own well-being. And taking a little alone time. These are our priorities today. Now you get to pick what your priorities are. These are mine. These are things that make for a better person. Now we're gonna take the sand. Now that we've filled our cup, now we have people requesting all these things. Hey, go do this. Can you do this for me? Which usually we would say yes to first. No, we're saying yes to ourselves first. We're saying yes to our priorities first. And then we can begin to help other people. We can go to the movies, we can read books, we can do podcasts, we can do all of the things that we want to do. And oh my gosh, look what happens. Look what happens when you fill yourself first. Not only did it all fit, but you still have room to go watch some TV show at night. You have room in your day because you prioritized and you essentially balanced your life well. Now, this is one analogy that I love. This is one that I've known since I was a kid, and I've had to constantly remind myself. I still have to remind myself, big rocks first, Heidi, big rocks first, because it is so easy, and it's so easy to get caught up in building a brand or building a business or all these things that feel so important, and to forget the other rocks, like forget the importance of building a solid family by way of having dinner at the dinner table, building a solid family by way of spending one-on-one time. So this is a thing that I have had to think of so much over the years. Now, I recently had something sent to me because I still struggle. This is, how do you juggle it all, Heidi? You have to know I juggle it all by dropping so many of the balls that I'm juggling. I do, and it's true, and it's okay. I've learned over time that I must give myself grace as I go through life. If I hold myself to an unrealistic standard, I am susceptible to being unhappy and not having peace, just like everybody else. And one day, as I was kind of making my transition, I would say the last chapter that I'm kind of closing and opening up a new one, which very career heavy, realizing some of the effects that I feel like my choices and my priorities have had on my family. In opening up this next chapter, I'm not having my career go away. I love my career. I'm so grateful for my career and my brand and you guys and everybody watching this. But I have made a decision to make my kids, my family, and what I want long term for my family first, more important than what I want for the world. Complete shift. In doing this and struggling to find that balance and struggling to feel like I'm not able to please everybody, I had a friend, Alexa, who's behind the camera, send me a really awesome quote one day. I guess I wouldn't call it a quote. It was a story online, and I'm gonna read this. And the story says this: one time, I was at a Q&A with Nora Roberts, and someone asked her how she balances writing and her kids. And she said, the key to juggling is to know that some of the balls you have in the air are plastic, and some of the balls you have in the air are made of glass. Clearly plastic, clearly glass. And if you drop the plastic ball, it bounces. No harm done. But if I were to drop this glass ball, she says, if I were to drop a glass ball, it will shatter and a lot of harm done. So the key is you have to know which balls are glass and which balls are plastic, and you have to prioritize accordingly. She says Nora was not talking about juggling 5 balls. She was talking about juggling 55 balls. Now, how many of you watching this right now can relate? I can. I feel like I'm juggling 55 balls at any point in time. She said the balls don't represent family or work, kind of like that last analogy that I had. She said there are separate balls for everything that goes into each of these categories. Deadline on project Y, crazy sock day at school. She said her point in addressing the room full of women was not prioritize kids over work. She said her point was some kid stuff is glass and some kid stuff is plastic. And sometimes, she says, to catch a glass work ball, this Project Y, which is very important and your kid's livelihood depends on it, you have to let a plastic kid's ball drop and know that it is okay. She says, I think about this all the time. This woman writing this, she says, I dropped more than 1 ball today, and it's hard to drop any ball, and I hate it. But they were plastic, and tomorrow it will be okay. So here's what I especially love about this. This analogy, this idea, empowers you and allows you to get to choose which balls in your life are plastic and which balls in your life are glass. I like to determine which balls are plastic and which are glass day to day based on my why, my overall purpose, my calling on this earth. And I love this idea because some days, me not being able to make it to my kids' practice or be the one to drive them to gymnastics, which was so hard for me for a while as I was making this transition. I felt like I needed to do everything. Sometimes though, my ability to have somebody else help with that so that I can get Project Y done at work this is a glass ball. Project Y is a glass ball, and knowing my kid will be okay and know that I love them, if I can call this a plastic ball and give myself some grace, Also vice versa. There are some things in life where your kids' events are glass and you cannot drop them. You not making it to graduation would probably be dropping a glass ball. I love this idea because it gives me control. It allows me to be the captain of my own ship and create the kind of balance that works for me. The last thing I'm gonna say, guys, is give yourself some grace. Give yourself some love. Know that none of us are gonna do it perfectly. We're not. It's all trial and error. And what balance is for you today probably isn't what balance will be for you tomorrow or in a year or 5 years from now. So allow yourself to grow, allow yourself to evolve, allow yourself to try things out and find what works best for you. Guys, I love you a ton. If I'm gonna give you any action item from this besides subscribe and comment below, because I actually think I could do a really great video on specific tips to help you create balance. Let me know if you want that. But the last thing I'm gonna say is take a minute, if you're up for it, and maybe try and identify in your life what plastic balls might be that you could allow to drop and what some of the glass non-negotiables are in your life. Write it down, have an idea of what this is so that when you create the balance that works and gives you the most peace, you'll appreciate yourself for the hard work done. I love you. Have a great day. So much more to come. Mwah.